JC and Byrne. Hair's not quite right. Had a few thoughts on this topic, and I realized if I commit to recording a video, it's never going to happen. You're not going to see it. I don't know if anyone will watch this, which is fine, but here I am. So maybe I'll do this more as time goes on. I don't know. But I wanted to get my thoughts out now while I had them. Okay. So if you're watching this, hopefully you're aware of the whole situation with Daniel Greene. If you're not, I don't know what to tell you. There's plenty of places where you can look that up. And so there's a person named Naomi King, and I'm not totally familiar with Naomi. I've seen many people refer to them as they. I don't know if Naomi uses they, them pronouns. It's too lazy to look it up, and I should have. I'm sorry. Anyway, Naomi basically came out with a video accusing Daniel Greene, the famous booktuber, of sexually assaulting her a couple of years ago in Vegas. It was very. Watch the video. I don't want to describe it. I don't think I have anything to add. Okay, and then people are very upset, very understandably upset. I'm not saying that's wrong, and what I'm finding is that so there's an accusation made, and sexual assault is one of those situations where we all know that there's often a very significant. First of all, there's cultural context around it that makes it very tricky. Often we know victims won't say anything, won't come forward. They don't feel that they will be believed. Maybe what happened to them doesn't fit the definition of a crime, which Naomi said in one of her videos. It doesn't. I don't know. I'm not a legal expert. There's also often a lack of physical evidence, right? If someone steals your car, they have your car. The cops find them with your car. They find fingerprints, right? But with sexual assault, especially if it's someone you know, it's like, well, I can prove they were in the room. But from a sort of evidentiary perspective, the way we normally think about crimes, we're looking for the evidence. There's often a lack. I'm not saying sexual assault doesn't happen or it's not serious. I'm just saying it's often difficult to prove. Okay, we know that. This is not like up for debate. Often victims don't come forward. Often they don't say anything. Often they only say things after a long period of time where they go, you know what? I really did, not want that. I really did say no. And, especially if we're impaired at the time, their recollection isn't completely there at first. Okay. So it's a very complicated thing compared to some other ways people are victimized. And then people get these disparate reactions that I think are both in some ways incorrect and correct. And that's where I want to bring a little bit of clarity in my thoughts on this topic in general. I'm not going to speak specifically to Daniel Greene or Naomi King, except peripherally. Okay. So there's an accusation made, right? If there's no accusation made, then no one knows about this and nothing happens. But an accusation is made somehow. So people hear, but it's just a he said, she said, right? Often the accusation is made, and there's rarely a video tape of it, right? There's rarely the 3 people watched and they're all testifying that this is exactly what happened. That's not the norm. The much more typical situation is, the victim is making a claim, and the accuser is either responding, hasn't responded, we don't know, and we get this situation where there are people whose instinct is, I always believe the victim, no matter what. And then there are people who say, well, innocent until proven guilty. Where's the evidence? She could be making it up. And these people are at two ends of a spectrum, and they're both kind of wrong and both kind of right. And what do I mean by that? Let's take a sort of an extreme example. So what I mean is, when someone makes an accusation, you want, do I believe them or not? Well, the problem is that's not the right question. The question is, what sort of belief do I need to have in order to take certain kinds of action? So let me break it down. Let's say someone comes to you, you're at a party, a friend of yours comes and says, I was just sexually assaulted. Get me out of here. I don't feel safe here. Take me somewhere else and maybe take me to an emergency room. I think I need medical care. Are you going to say, well, prove it? I don't believe you. Are you going to say, did you fight? Where are your scratches? Of course not, right? Because in that you say, in that moment you go, whatever you need, right? And then let's imagine a different situation. Okay, second story. Someone comes to you at a party and says, I was just sexually assaulted by Bob. You know Bob. You're friends with Bob. You've been friends with Bob for like 10 years, but he just sexually assaulted me. Get the gun out of your car. We're going to go into that room and we're going to kill Bob because he just sexually assaulted me. And then we're going to go and we're going to bury him like out back. And I think a reasonable person might say it's perfectly reasonable for that in that first situation, get me out of here, get me to safety, take me for medical care. And maybe also like keep an eye on that guy and don't let him be alone with other women at this party until we kind of work things out. You know, that's one sort of, and you don't need much evidence to support that. You say, of course I believe you, because what that person needs from you, look, if they're lying and they're making it up and they don't need anything from you, right? But if on the off chance that they were really assaulted, pretty good chance, right? You don't know, you're not 100% certain. They need succor, right? They need your support. You give it to them unconditionally. You say, I'm taking whatever you need. You want to go for medical care? I'll get your coat. What? I don't know, whatever. Dave, go keep an eye on Bob. He just sexually assaulted someone. Like, don't let him be alone with like your cousin, whatever, right? But if that person says, get your gun out of the car, we're going to kill Bob, that's a little different. That's a lot harder to reverse, right? And then I think you have a right to say, whoa, I'm not killing Bob. I've known Bob for, and then you start asking questions. You start, and those questions are reasonable questions if someone's saying, let's go kill Bob, right? Right? Like, so I've known Bob for a long time. Does this fit into Bob's character? Has Bob been accused of this by other people, right? Is there physical evidence? Maybe we should call the cops and let them handle this rather than just going and shooting Bob. But then you picture a different scenario, or maybe you know for a fact this person was assaulted and they have like, I'm going to use this extreme, ridiculous example. They have like a videotape, a secret camera recorded it. You can see they're fighting, or they're saying no, they're not giving consent, they're being assaulted. You know the cops have been called, they've refused to pursue it for whatever reason. And then they say, hey, get your gun, we're going to go kill Bob. And it's like, time later, but you've seen real proof, right? You're going to have a different standard for that sort of behavior. You're going to say, oh, well, maybe then you do go and you bring your gun and you kill Bob, right? Because I'm not saying you shouldn't. Maybe you shouldn't. Right? I don't know. And Naomi, okay, let's just be clear. Naomi is not asking anyone to go and shoot Daniel Greene and bury him in the backyard, or if they are asking for that, I didn't see it. Okay, that wasn't what the video said. So this is not specifically about them. My point is, you've got people in these two extremes, and then of course, some people say innocent until proven guilty, but innocent, does that mean you don't believe? You don't say, oh, I'm not taking you to the hospital. I'm not going to offer you, support. I'm not going to keep an eye on Bob until Bob has gone to trial and been proven, to, in a court of law. Well, that's not reasonable either, right? You're going to keep an eye on Bob. Bob's at a party with, other women around, I don't know why I'm picking on Bob, but there's a real Bob watching this. I'm so sorry. So there's nuance to this, and there are different reactions that we are going to have that should be supported by different levels of evidence. So if someone says like, someone has a business relationship with Daniel Greene, they're like, I want to wait to see more of the facts unfold because there's a lot at stake. Like, so, okay, but Joe, JC Umbrella, right? If I say, okay, you know what, this Daniel Greene, he seems like a real shit based on, I don't know if can I curse on YouTube? I don't even know. I think I can. Based on that video that I watched, I'm going to unsubscribe. Okay, right? Like, I actually, I don't think I subscribe to Daniel Greene's channel. I'm not even sure. I don't watch his videos. I subscribe to a lot of stuff though, so don't hold me to that. If you said, but what if I had a business relationship? What if I was another booktuber who like often shared revenue stream with the guy? I don't think it's unfair to say like let's give it a day or two. Let's see if he's got a response, because I'm an author. I can imagine. And I'm not saying Naomi's lying. I'm not saying any of these scenarios I'm imagining are accurate. I don't think they are. I suspect they are not. I suspect Naomi told the strict truth. That's my best guess. But if my financial future was at stake, I might say, well, let's say because I can imagine a story coming out, right? Where you were like, you know what? Turns out we maybe shouldn't have jumped the gun on that. And this is another reason we don't all get in our cars with guns and go shoot Daniel Greene, right? Many reasons for that, but one of them is I can imagine a story coming out where you're like, you know what? He doesn't deserve to be shot for. I mean, again, right now, I don't think those stories are going to come out. I think it's going to turn out that he's as much of a jerk as he seems to be. That's my best guess. but I'm not. I can imagine ways where, in a week from now, I'll be like, ooh, he actually had. There was more to that story than we thought, right? If you want me to like tell you like what those imaginary stories are, I could come up with one. I don't know. So my point is, innocent until proven guilty in a court of law. Yeah, we're going to wait for that before we put him in prison, which I don't think is going to happen in the scenario. But whatever. But that's like one reaction, right? But then for lower level reactions like severing a business relationship or just unsubscribing or just publicly saying I shun this guy and I support this other person, we should expect a lower standard of evidence and a higher standard of evidence for something like let's all get in the truck with our guns and go shoot this dude. And people on both ends are kind of talking about like, well, if you don't believe victims, then blah blah blah. Believing victims, yeah, you believe the victim. You give them what they need. You give them, I guess, succor, medical care, support, safety. Take them to safety. Keep an eye on the accused. Right. That is stuff you owe without evidence. But again, maybe there are stronger reactions where you look for more, and that is normal and reasonable. It's not a binary. It's not believe or not believe all victims. Right. Are there? And there's lots of kinds of evidence like. Look, we all know Cosby's guilty, right? Like, there's just too many stories, too consistent, and that's part of it. Are we gonna feel the same way about Daniel Greene? I suspect we will, but we don't really know. Like, we look. I don't want to cast aspersions, but I can imagine a situation where someone accuses someone else, and it turns out that person who made the accusation turns out they make a lot of accusations, and they have a history with documentation of threatening to make an accusation to make blackmail people, right? To say or extort. I forget the difference between blackmail and extort, but there's a history of like letters and emails where they say, if you don't give me 10,000 right money, I will make this accusation and you'll be canceled, right? We can. I'm not saying in any way that that's accurate of this person. We can imagine a situation where people do that. People do make. It's extremely rare, right? Rare, but false accusations do happen. That's why an accusation happens. You don't just, like I said, get in the car, truck, the gun, knife, and go after the guy, right? You wait. You give it a little time. You give it a little thought, a little space, and then you also have to be kind of fair when someone has a business relationship with the guy and they go, we need to figure all this out. We need a little more background. We need to wait to see if he's got a really good answer for what happened and supporting evidence and documentation before we maybe make a business decision that might put people out of work or cost us a lot of money. Money's important. I hate to say it, but it is. Again, I'm not saying that's going to happen in this case, but we have to have some grace. We have to allow people to have disparate reactions, and we have to understand that it's appropriate to have disparate reactions, and it's appropriate to, again, expect different things for different levels of response, right? So, and honestly, like if you were like very close to Daniel Greene right now, and you're like, I'm not just going to cut this guy out of my life right now based on this because I'm like his brother. I don't know if he has any siblings. Right? I don't know the guy, but like just an example, imagine someone's his brother, right, or sister. They're like, look, they don't immediately say, I'll never speak to my sibling again. Well, I'm not sure that would be warranted right now based on what we know right now, as I'm saying this. And that's normal and appropriate. So what's my point? My point is, oh, hey, Melissa, I didn't like brush my hair. I just came out and I felt like I needed to say this now or I was never going to say it. Hey, Nate, how you doing? It's all good. Yeah. So this is my thought on this, and I'm gonna keep going back to the same analogy I had before. Someone says they were assaulted. Believe all victims, 100%. You say I believe you. You take them to safety. You give them whatever care they need. If they want to go to the doctor, you take them to the doctor. Whatever they need, right? But again, on the other hand, if they come and say, let's go kill the guy who did this or whatever, I don't even know what you do if they say, let's go beat the crap out of him, right? Like, part of me is like, yeah, but then part of me is like, at that point, you're like, there isn't a mark on you. You're not bruised. You seem like sober. Maybe you can ask some questions, and the amount of questions you ask is going to be different. And that's good. That is how things are. That is how ethics is supposed to work. There's supposed to be context. There's supposed to be variation in your responses and what you need in order to have it justify a certain reaction. That's it. That's really all I have to say on this topic. So, like, I don't think any of these scenarios are going to come out where, like, it turns out Naomi was, blackmailing this guy. Right? I don't. That doesn't feel right based on the content of the video that Naomi made. That it doesn't ring like the sniff. It doesn't pass the sniff test. But I can't 100% again. Can't completely rule it out. So I'm not going to get in a car, drive over to this guy's house, and like shoot him. Right? I don't think I would do that anyway, because that's generally not the way I go about things. But it's also appropriate for law enforcement to, like, I'm not sure based on what we know right now. Well, that's up for law enforcement to decide. But you can imagine that they're going to have a different conversation. So if you're saying I'm going to unsubscribe from this channel, what evidence do I need? It's different than the evidence law. It's a lower standard than what law enforcement needs to. Watching her have a panic attack on camera was very hard. I think if it turns out that she's making this up or lying, she's a fantastic actress, and I highly doubt that's the case. I highly doubt that this is made up or that any of it was nefarious on Naomi's part. I don't see it. I don't think that'll happen. But I'm not 100% sure. I don't know this person. I have no. And again, if I had known Naomi like my whole life, like we grew up together. Yeah, I mean, I doubt Naomi's faking it too. I agree with you, but I doubt it. I'm not 100%. Some people are great actors, and this isn't me saying like don't believe Naomi. This is me saying don't get in a truck and go to Daniel's house and beat the crap out of him right now. And I don't think anyone's calling for that. But I think when people are saying, oh, like wait for the evidence to come in, they're when people are saying like, oh, let's wait innocent until proven guilty, what they're thinking is innocent until proven guilty. That's what you wait for before you put the guy in prison for the rest of his life or shoot him, right? And that's fair, right? You wait for a higher standard of evidence. But for unsubscribing and it is tricky if you're in a business. But I mean, we've seen on YouTube, Jackson Deckard said, I'm cutting ties with the guy. That's rough. That's a big hit for Jackson, right? Like professionally and financially, long term. Like that's not cool. That's the choice he made. But if Jackson had said, I don't know, I need to wait to see what his response, what Daniel's response is, and I believe Naomi, but I don't want to make any final decisions yet. I think that would have been, I wouldn't have hated him for that. I would have been like, okay, you make your call, right? Like, I wouldn't have held that against. I wouldn't have held that against him. Like, he made the call he made, but I think it also would have been, in my mind, reasonable to say, give it a couple days. Again, maybe, because I'm a writer, part of my shtick is like I imagine, like I see someone do something bad, and I try to like imagine like, what's the explanation here? What's the reason? What's their story? The other side, right? That's how my brain works. That's how a lot of writers' brains work. You have to kind of be able to think of that, and so I can imagine stories where we're all going to be like, we overreacted. I don't think that'll be the case. I think it's highly unlikely that is how this is going to pan out. Okay, very unlikely. But again, I can make up a story, right? Where that does. If I can make up a story where that. And I don't mean a crazy one like, oh, it's actually an alien mind control. I mean like a real story. So those are my 6 cents, 2 cents, 5 cents, some number of pennies, a small number of pennies. And again, I don't have any special insight into these particular people. And also it's much easier for me because I don't care about, I have nothing invested in Daniel Greene. I don't really like the guy. It's like Neil Gaiman, I was never a fan of Neil Gaiman's work, and I'm not pretending I have some moral superiority where I always knew he was a creep. I had no idea he was a creep. I didn't particularly like Sandman. I read it. I thought it was okay. I didn't love it. I didn't know I didn't know that Gaiman apparently he stole a lot of his plagiarized a lot of the concepts from Sandman from I want to say Tanith Lee, but that's probably wrong. But I didn't. I mean, for me, it wasn't hard to. Oh no, I never liked Gaiman. Again, this isn't like, oh, I secretly knew he was a bad guy. Absolutely not. I had no idea. But I didn't like his writing. I read I think I read some of like American Gods, one of his novels, and I was like, this isn't for me. It's the kind of stuff that's not for me. The lyrical stuff, the metaphorical stuff is not for me. I don't generally like that style. Yeah, no. I mean, there are people who are like, I never liked him. I always thought there was something off about the guy. And then I really don't like the take of all the liberal feminist men are really abusers. Like, that's BS. There's a lot of men who are like sort of self-proclaimed feminists and who fight for women's rights, and most of them are not abusive, but some are, and it makes the news because it makes the news. Gaiman turned out to be a sexual abuser. It's gonna make the news. I think if someone who wrote about sexual abuse in a positive way turned out to be a sexual abuser, everyone would be like, of course. What do you expect? So I don't know. I don't know that I have anything else to say. Any more comments? Thank you guys for stopping by. I have 4 watchers. I didn't promote this at all. I literally just figured out my camera. It all enforces the whole man or bear debate. I mean, this is the reality. And again, men will sometimes get offended by this, but the point is that there are very few or no external clues that a woman can cue in on that can let her know with certainty, given the high stakes, right, that a man is safe to be around. It's actually kind of that's the case, and the fact that men abusing, and I say men abusing women because that is predominantly what happens. Right? Women abuse men. Both sexes, genders abuse children, right? Like, this happens, absolutely. But it's more often men abusing women. And that's why men, and that's one of the things about being a writer, right? You need to understand that women go out down the street, and most women in modern, in the world, are aware constantly that they are in some level of threat. And, like, I don't. I walk around and I generally have no concern that it's like being white and getting pulled over by a cop. I get pulled over by a cop and I'm like, what I do? It's a ticket, right? I never think like, this is bad. Like, this is really bad, right? I'm like, I'm going to pay a ticket. That sucks. I could have used that $200 for something or whatever it is, right? But if you're black, it's different, right? And you have to, if you're a woman and you're walking down the street, guy's behind you. If I'm walking down the street, woman's behind me, I never, again, is the threat zero? No, the threat is not zero. I could be assaulted, right? I don't feel it. I don't feel threatened ever, really. Anywhere I go, I'm like, could something happen to me anywhere I go? Sure, but I don't, statistics aren't high enough for me to actually feel like it's a real possibility where I feel emotionally like I'm vulnerable. But most women feel like that all the time, or most of the time, and that's horrifying. I don't know what I can't do anything about that, but I can acknowledge it. I think it's horrible. I'm sorry, and that's the man or bear debate. I've talked already way more than I expected to. I don't know if I'll do these more. I lost a like. That's really funny. I had 3 likes and went down to 2 likes. I don't know what happened. Did I say something? Okay, it's fine. Thanks for coming, and those are my thoughts on Daniel Greene and Naomi King, and my thoughts certainly go out to, again, I hope Naomi gets some kind of peace or closure or justice or something. I don't know what would work, what would help, but I hope whatever is capable of helping them, I hope they get it. And yeah, that's it. So thanks for watching, and I guess I feel for Naomi. She's incredibly brave for telling her story. Yeah, I believe she is. I believe Naomi is incredibly brave for telling that story. I believe that it's true, but again, I believe that I don't have anything new to say, right? Like that it seemed really rough. And I watched it's popping up now. The original video from a year or 2 ago it was like an 8-minute video where Naomi discusses this event without naming Daniel, and no one. And that's sort of worth a watch. Also, the story hasn't really changed. Yeah, and I know people talk about it. Well, is the cease and desist, is that a damning thing or not? I don't know. I'm not a lawyer. It might be that if this is normally the thing a lawyer would advise a person to do or not. I have no idea. I have no idea. So hopefully I'll do these a little more often. Maybe I'll give a little more warning next time. But thanks for joining, everyone. And if anyone else has anything to say, you can always ping me. You guys know where to find me. Blue Sky or even Twitter or Discord. And if I have new thoughts, I'll do another one of these, I guess. So have some grace and some understanding for people's different positions on this. Have some grace, right? Like Matt, Matt's fantasy review. He did this video response to the thing, and it was an incredibly poor taste. I thought it was like deeply poor. But then he took it down and he apologized, and I'm like, again, do I think it was a shitty thing to do to make that video that he made? Yes. Am I going to go to his house and punch him? No. No one should. Someone apparently tried to dox the guy and call his worker, his employer. Like, no. He did a dumb thing, right? He did it. Just have some grace. Have some grace. Have some understanding. People do stupid things. Call them out on it. Let them take it down and apologize, sure. But leave it at that. Leave it at that. Have some grace. That's going to be my new mantra. Have some understanding. Have some understanding. So take care, everyone. Take care. And thanks for stopping by.